my name is Varun and welcome to my channel called All About Planning. In my previous video, I gave a brief introduction to strategic airport planning, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the changing context of airport planning. One of the important factors that led to this dramatic change in this industry being the role of traditional institutions, where airline regulations played a really important role. In 1920s, the regulation of the US Air Service was promoted with the concerns related to safety and also lack of funds for the infrastructure, and also to subsidize the emerging industry. Many other countries also followed the similar policies, ensuring socially necessary services by controlling their route entry, route exits, capacities and frequency. There was a distinction made in regulations between the nationally important carriers and the interregional and the feeder services. The international regulations were based on the International Conference for Air Navigation in 1919, which was reinterpreted in 1944 by the Chicago Convention, which brought in the International Civil Aviation Organization, that is the ICAO, in 1947. Among the other things, the members also agreed upon the freedoms of air and also the bilateral air service agreements. In general, each nation had equal share on capacities on a route and also had some pooling of revenue. There was a restriction for number of gateways that could be used. In addition to all these, the airlines were expected to provide the domestic services, often in an uneconomic fare levels, which was there to fulfill the social needs. Very often, these airlines are used as the instruments for government policies and also to generate more employment and to showcase the country's technological advancement. Another important factor is the airport as a public facility. The early landing strips and the navigation aids were set up by the airlines operating the mail, but later on the aviation infrastructure was recognized as a public facility similar to the roads. The unconstrained access to an airport for an interstate commerce and its importance was soon recognized by the US federal authorities. Neither in Europe nor elsewhere it is easy to generalize the ownership and the management of an airport. Until recently, most of it was in public hands. In some countries, there is central ownership and management. In some, it is central ownership and local management. In some, it is shared ownership, and in some, it is local ownership and management. The institutional role of the national government in these cases will be from planning and management of an airport to the provision of funds. The other important factor which led to many changes in this industry being the market imperfections. The deregulatory movement had its origin in the feeling that the domestic air transport had reached to that extent where protecting it from the market forces was no longer justified. Any competition which was allowed under a regulatory regime proved itself to be not sufficient and also did not satisfy the consumers of this market. The other factor was also that the public ownership distorted the flow of the investment funds. All these imperfections generate an airport system whose planning is then constrained. There are many important factors under this, one of them being the lack of competition. The obvious result of regulation is lack of competition. The only difference in the product of airlines were the cabin service and punctuality. There was no incentive to improve their efficiency and services. There was no incentive to improve their market share unless there were private stakeholders. The technical quality of the regulated airlines were high due to the safety regulations, and the employees were enthusiastic. As there was very less control over the cost, rather there was more control over the excess profit, and thus this led to in taking the surplus as the salary. Another important factor is the direct and the indirect subsidies. The need for the airport to accommodate all these services required direct subsidy to the carriers and the airport, especially in those days where the traffic levels were really low. The Essential Air Service program in the US aimed at providing all these to the airports even with less traffic. The indirect subsidies included the tax exemption bonds provided to the airport investments in the US, distorted it from the normal investments. Another factor being the shortage of funds. As the traffic and the airline industry grew, the government found it very difficult to release funds. And in most of the countries, there is a constraint up to which the private funding can be utilized for a government facility. Though we have seen a very healthy mix of private and public funding in many cases. The private funding represents a healthy transfer of wealth between the customer and the owner of the capital. Whether this is efficient or not depends on the question of effectiveness and the contribution to the social welfare between the public and the privately funded airports. While all these questions central to how a national program on airport development should be structured and funded. Another very important factor is the political decision distortion. The airport planning process is often distorted by the ad hoc, politically motivated decisions which overturn the logical solutions. These distortions cannot be avoided completely, but the planning process can be immune if the underlying issues are recognized and addressed formally. Thank you so much for watching this video. And in my next video, I'll be discussing more factors which led to important changes in airport planning. Till then, if you like the video, please share it and do subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you.